Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first ever Amos onboarding call. My name is Dom. I'm a founder and contributor at the Salvio Foundation. And we've gathered here to discuss the specification of Amos in order to get the project from the ground all the way to the stratosphere. So the format of this project is going to be quite simple. It's going to be mainly in the form of a presentation, and that is pretty much it. Before we get into the specification, let's discuss what workflow we're going to be using. I have the following proposal. We can also discuss further on Slack if you guys agree, disagree, want to extend it, want to modify it. I suggest we use GitHub for our code base, GitHub projects for our project management software. So with that, I also wanted to give you guys a quick intro to GitHub projects. So I set up a project which I call Amos. I've linked it to two repositories. We have Amos Web, which is our web app, and we have Amos Back, which is our backend. We'll probably also have Amos Chrome and Amos Mobile, and those will be linked as well. We have 4 columns. We have the product backlog. We have priority, in progress, and completed. Over here, we can see the current progress of the whole project, which is terrific. What's also nice is that it automatically integrates with GitHub issues and GitHub pull requests, so you can set up automation. So the product backlog is currently preset as to do, and it also has the option that newly added issues go into the backlog. So any issue that is added to either Amos Web or Amos Back will go over here. Actually, now that I think about it, issues will probably be better if they're in priority. So let's change that. This rule will be removed from the product backlog column. Are you sure? Yes. Update. Done. So product backlog is an unordered backlog of all of our ideas for future features. And priority are what we're planning to be working on in the next few weeks. So just to reiterate, any issues that are created in either of these repos will also be added over here. We also have in progress. Let's look at if there's any automation there. So if issues are reopened, they are here. If pull requests are either added or reopened, they go into in progress. And finally, we have completed. Let's look at the automation here. When issues are closed or pull requests are closed, then it will automatically go into completed. You can either add cards just by clicking plus, or you can also add issues. Either they're added automatically, or you can convert any note to an issue by clicking this button right here. That will ask you to choose which repository, and it will be converted. So that's pretty cool. Last of all, since these two are set as the preset of to do, and this is set as the preset of in progress, and this is set as the preset of done, then that also corresponds to the progress chart right here. So these 7 are in to do, we have 0 in progress, and we have 1 that is done. Cool. I think it's a very very lightweight tool and will be perfect for our current flat organization of the project. We're also these are all just proposals, but yeah. So it still can be changed. We want to use Kanban product management style because we think that it's more agile than Scrum. So just the recap of what Kanban is, it's essentially Scrum where you don't do the pointing poker, and also you don't have all these rituals. So the way we can structure it is the sort of the product manager or the product owner, well, you know, in theory, but in practice, I want that to be the whole team, will be deciding on what goes into priority. Of course, product backlog is for everyone. Anyone can add that, but the product guy, or I should say the whole team, will ideally be deciding what's priority to build, and then the technical team. But again, right now that's everyone, will be moving that to in progress and finally completed. When it comes to sort of meetings, I think we can have them as we choose on the go. The only thing that might be useful is to set up a daily stand up by chat. Cool. That's everything I wanted to say. The second point is our integration between Git and Slack. So we have several options. We can use the official GitHub integration. The problem with that is for some reason, you can't choose which branches it will post commits from. So I think that's a bit limiting. I tried sort of doing that through Zapier. The only problem is if you do it with Zapier, you don't get formatted data. You just get a post that there's a new commit, or a new issue, but there's no information on that. So I will probably set up the GitHub legacy integration, which from my memory from Gnosis allows you to set up which branches that it will be following. We want to be using Git flow. So just a quick recap, there's a master branch, there's going to be a develop branch, that's going to be the official branch for the repos. And whenever you work on something, you work on a feature, or we work on a feature slash whatever feature we're working on, and then we can merge it into develop. Master will be for releases. And ideally, sort of the way that GitHub projects is supposed to work is we work on specific issues. So these will, obviously get converted to issues. I just haven't done that yet because they're just drafts, they're just proposals. But once we sort of have a roadmap, we have the mock-ups, then we'll convert all these to issues, and we'll always be working on a specific issue in our pull request, and then we merge it to develop. So to go back to this point, we will have it post commits only on master and develop. Perfect. So without further ado, let's dive into the back end.
Actually, quick question, real quick. Will we be using some sort of commit message style? Like, for instance, like conventional commits? Yeah,
of course.
Okay.
On that note, we could also think about squashing the commits to master and develop, but I don't know if you can do that through the UI. I think most of us are used to merging pull requests through the web application, and if you just click on that, it merges all of the commits.
No, so recently I think GitHub redesigned the UI so that you can squash and merge from the pull request UI itself.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I saw that they added draft pull requests, which
Yeah,
is
those are
which is a
super
great
nice
UI
looking
feature.
APIs.
That's really helpful. But if now
Yeah.
you can also squash it, even better. Okay, let's talk about backend. So essentially, the backend will be quite easy. For MVP, we're starting with 4 metadata fields, essentially. Just to recap the MVP, the only user story that it will allow is precisely adding reviews and also make notifications. So how do you add reviews? You specify up to 4 metadata fields. Why do I say up to? Because you can also specify just one of them, but you always need a link. The other ones are optional. So let's have a look at these 4 fields. So they're called access, position, topics, and learning dependencies. Let's talk about access. So access is composed of 3 fields: the link, the price, and the format. So the link is quite obvious. You enter the URL hyperlink for the resource. We also plan to do a little bit of processing on the back end to make it easier for users to enter these links in a consistent manner. So I have done a little bit of work on this, and we have a Notion table where we list some of the most popular resource providers, and we sort of try to examine in what structure their URL field works. The reason for that is once we understand the structure, we'll be able to do some processing and make it easier for the user. For example, if we have a mobile app and the user is on Chrome and he or she clicks share and clicks on the Amos app, then we can pre-fill obviously the URL. But the way that sharing Medium articles on mobile works is, for some reason, it converts the long URL into a URL of the form link.medium.com/y, where y does not at all correspond to the actual ID of the article. So what we'll do is we'll hit this page with a HTTP request. It will return either a 302 or a 307 redirect, and once we hit that page with another request, then we can actually find what the article is about, i.e. we can pre-fill another link, the canonical link, and we can also pre-fill the title of the website. So just to back up, when it comes to the title of the website, at least for the MVP, we're planning that is not editable by the user, but will always be pre-filled thanks to the HTTP question automatically. Of course, this is just an MVP. We'll see how this turns out. From the analysis that I've done, every single one of the resource providers that I showed you, the sort of the HTML title tag, i.e. the title of the website, always very well corresponds to what it should actually be. So that's great. Next, we have the price. So we're planning that's an enum. Either it can be free, it can be free, but with advertising, external advertising, or it can be subscription only, or it can be paid. For the subscription only option, I think for now we just leave it subscription only. But in the future, of course, you will also be able to enter which subscription. So, for example, Netflix, YouTube Premium, Audible, Blinkist, Kindle Unlimited, etc. The format can either be audio, video, or text. Again, based on some processing, we might be able to fill in that field as well. And if it's text, we also split it up into HTML text, A4 PDF, smaller than A4, larger than A4, maybe EPUB, etc. The reason that it's useful to split up PDFs into their size is people need to know this to, for example, know whether they can read it on their Kindle. Great. One of the most important metadata fields is called position. This specifies the resource's position in the resource tree. So while our topic tree is sort of fixed, so let me write that down as well. So we have a topic tree, and that is like pretty much fixed. It's stored on GitHub, and we only allow changes to it through pull requests. But then we also have what's called a resource tree, and that one is pretty much floating. So the way that works is when you want to specify the position, you can either select a first class node or a parent of another resource, a child of another resource, or a connecting node between two resources. And depending on what you vote, whatever has the most votes among all the various options that people will be voting on will be the one that we use for our resource tree. Yeah, so that is that. Okay, perfect. So that was the first two metadata fields. Next, we have topics. So topics is the topics the resource is on. Now, since topics are a tree, then actually we encourage people to sort of enter the most specific or most granular or most detailed topic in order for our database to be as detailed as possible. They can, of course, enter multiple topics as well. And last but not least, we have learning dependencies. Learning dependencies are, well, they're topics, right? But they represent a different meaning in as a metadata field. And again, we encourage that people be as specific as possible. Now, let me mention two things before we move on. The first one is our data structure, and the second one is reputation. So first, the data structure. So I here wrote that the topic tree and the resource tree are trees. They're actually DAGs rather than trees. They're directly basically graphs. The only difference is in a tree, every node can only have one parent, but we allow one node to have multiple parents. Why is that? It's because there exists a lot of topics, for example. Let's look at topics and then at resources. There exist a lot of topics that belong to multiple fields. If you think of my favorite example, formal languages, that belongs to computer science, linguistics, and mathematics. And there are so many of these fields. Computational physics, the economics of law, political economy, computer algebra. These are all fields that belong in many different academic disciplines. The same is true for resources. If you have a resource that is from HackerNoon and it's from medium.com, we want it to have two parents. If you have a resource that is a TED video and it's also on YouTube, same thing with Khan Academy. So that also leads me to another thing, is that resources are either any resources, but they can also represent obviously umbrella resources or even platforms. So that's what makes the tree or DAG data structure appropriate. We'll have first-class nodes such as YouTube, Udemy, Coursera, and then they will have a bunch of children, maybe a specific YouTube channel on YouTube, or for example, and then that will have the videos. Cool. So we've discussed the data structure. Now let's talk about reputation. So the way we're planning this sort of community game theoretical model is we won't have something like administrators, moderators, we won't have a spam team. We've designed a model that we believe is sound and self-correcting. So that's our aim, is to design a model where people, acting in their self-interest, quote unquote, will be in the end contributing metadata that is true. How did we design that? So the way we've done that is through a concept called reputation. So if you register, you have a reputation of 0, and you can gain reputation, and you can also use it. In particular, you gain reputation by adding reviews, and you use it by adding reviews. So how do you gain it? So let's say there's some resource, and it's a TED video, and you say that one of its metadata fields, let's say position, should be that it's from the content provider TED, and other people agree with you. So then you gain reputation. Now, how do you use reputation? In exactly the same way. So every time you vote on something, every time you review something, we don't count the number of people, we count the number of reputation. So essentially the votes are weighted by reputation. So let me give you an example. So let's say you're the first person to add this resource, and you see that the position is that it's a child of the content provider TED. And let's say you have reputation 0. Now let's say somebody else comes along and he agrees with you and he has reputation 50. Then at this point you gain 1 reputation point. Now let's say somebody else comes along and has a reputation of 8. Then you don't get anything yet. But then somebody else comes along and has, let's say, 1,000, then you might gain 2 reputation points. One example of how this could, the constants for how this could work is 1 reputation point after you will result in you getting 1 reputation point, another 9, so 10 in total will be +2, another 90 will be +3, and another 900 will be +4, and it will grow logarithmically. Cool. So that's concerning the reputation model. So you gain, to summarize the whole thing, you gain reputation by other people agreeing with you with their reputation. And the more people that agree with you on each of those metadata fields, then you will be gaining reputation for that. I should stress that this is specific for each and every single metadata field. So it will be specific for every learning dependency that you enter, every topic that you enter, the position that you entered, as well as every single access triplet that you entered. Furthermore, this sort of game that we have going on, it's kind of inspired by this game theoretical concept called a shelling game. You guys can look it up. It's used very widely in blockchains as what's called a decentralized oracle. But since we've modified it significantly, we call this the Amos game. And in particular, in the past, we also had a limited Amos game. So we used to call this the unlimited Amos game. And the way it works is, since sort of the API is not public at the moment, you don't know what other people are adding as topics or learning dependencies. So you can't cheat just by always voting on the most popular option. You have to think about it, think what the topics and learning dependencies for the resource are. And once you have that, you vote on it. And the reason it's called unlimited is this process continues on forever. Cool. So that's essentially what I wanted to say about reputation. What's very crucial as well is that reputation is not for every user a scalar field. Rather, it forms a tree. So the reputation tree, or I should say reputation DAG, follows one-to-one the topic DAG. And in particular, you will always have reputation for the topic of the resource that you're voting on. Reputation bubbles up. That's very, very important. So if we have a resource tree, if we have a topic tree that is like math, number theory, and modular arithmetic, and then maybe Fermat's little theorem, then if you gain a reputation for Fermat's little theorem, you will also gain the same amount of reputation for modular arithmetic, for number theory, and for mathematics. Now, which topics do you actually gain reputation for? So for topics, it is the topics that you enter. So if you enter a topic of algebra and other people are agreeing with you, you will gain it for algebra. For every single other metadata field, for learning dependencies, for position, and for access, you will be gaining it for whichever topics are the most popular. This particular logic is yet to be determined. It can either be an n amount of most popular topics, or it can be a variable amount of topics that together result in, let's say, 80% of all reputation votes. So the way the cutoff is determined is yet to be determined, but we know that that's what we want. We could even make it simpler and have the same exact logic for topics as well. Yeah, I guess we could do that. Let's do that because it's easier. So let's do that. Cool. And then the last thing that I'll say is this sort of model also incentivizes you to be as granular or as specific as possible. So if you enter the topic to be mathematics, then every time somebody agrees with you, which will probably not be that many people, by the way, because they're more likely to be more granular than you, then you will only be getting a reputation for mathematics. But if you enter Fermat's little theorem, which is what the resource is actually about, not only will there be much more people agreeing with you because the Schelling point here, the focal point is that people are granular. Additionally, once people are agreeing with you, you'll be gaining reputation for FLT, but also for MA, NT, and mathematics. And this is where I realize now sort of why we wanted the topics to have a different structure, and that is precisely so that the incentive is there. So maybe we'll keep it. So this is like, I'm fine both ways, or we could discuss it specifically on Slack or another call. So topics, votes, reputation goes to sort of the submission, or it goes to most popular topics, just like all the other fields. Cool. So that's the back end. Front end wise, let's have a look at the current wireframes. So this is what we currently have. And let me explain it to you. Very briefly, I will attach the link and you can have a look at it and read everything by yourself. So the homepage will be the search page. Also, please note that while initially we plan to make 5 screens, we've significantly simplified the project, the MVP experiment, and we only have 3. So this would actually only be review, search, and notifications. So search screen will essentially be an introduction to the project. The sign up screen and login screens will serve as authentication, and notifications will serve as notifications that you gain some reputation from specific reviews. Finally, we have the review screen where you can review resources. You can attach any number of these triplets, these access triplets. Sometimes if you enter a specific link, then a new triplet will be created, like the one that I mentioned with link.medium. Once you enter that, then it will create a new access triplet with the canonical URL, and it can also automatically pre-fill the format and the paid because it knows that it's medium. So it's going to be intelligent. That's going to we're going to try to make it as easy and as seamless as possible for users to submit metadata. Next, we have the position. So everything okay there. We've already talked about that. Either a first-class resource, a parent resource of another resource, a child resource, or a connecting resource. Topics would allow you to search for topics and add as many as you want here. And same with learning dependencies. The learning dependencies are also a little bit more semantic. We also have 5 levels of strength. Necessary, strongly recommended, recommended. It would be cool if you know it, and it would be good if you know it. There's 5 different strengths of learning dependency. And also sort of the level, or here we just encode it as the number of hours on a specific topic. Yeah. This can also be one idea, one UI idea, UX idea is that this is not sort of a form, but it's more like a paragraph. So I would, and then you can pick either recommend or think it's necessary that people have spent at least, you can enter a number, hours on, and you can enter a topic. And once you're done with everything, you can also finish anywhere in the middle. You'll be greeted with a thank you screen, and you're very likely in the future to get a reputation. What did I want to say? Oh yeah, so these are very, very low fidelity wires that I created a week back or so. We're currently working on high fidelity mockups, and they are planned to be ready by the excellent Michelle tomorrow, and if not, then we might wait a few more days. Yeah. Great. I do realize that I've left out a few things from the backend side, from the backend logic, but maybe it is not that important at this stage. Or actually, I'll say them. So the first thing that I can think of is, so also in particular, as I said before, every not just field, but every option for every field has its own unlimited Amos game. And what that also means is that the same is true also for learning dependencies. So there will be its own Amos game for a learning dependency of strength 3 and a particular topic. And there will be its own Amos game for learning dependency of strength 4 and a particular topic. So then you could ask, how are we doing it with hours? Surely, we can't have every number of hours be its own Amos game, because then that would be too many Amos games, and we don't have such large network effects at the moment. So then there is some logic that is to be determined yet, and sort of to create some equivalence relations between the numbers of hours. So for example, if your number of hours is at least within 25% of another one, then you gain reputation for that. So if somebody enters something that is within 25% of yours, you'll be gaining reputation for that. Just a reminder, in the topics that are the most popular for that resource. The second thing I wanted to say is merging resources. So it can happen even with our fancy processing that some resources would represent the same resource, yet they would be as different resources in our database. And the way we're going to handle that is once there's at least, let's say, 50 reputation points as the URL of the first resource being the same as the URL of the second resource. Sorry, I didn't say that well. Let me say that again. Let me write that down. It's easier to read than to listen. So let's say there's resource 1, which has URL 1, and resource 2, which has URL 2, but actually they represent the same learning resource. Then once R1 will get, somebody will submit URL 2 for R1, and let's say at least 50 reputation points will confirm it. Then or vice versa, obviously. Then we'll merge. Sorry, finally did it. Merge the two resources. So merging on the database layer. So all of the fields will get merged together. Luckily, since these are just, you can think of them as hash maps, each of them field sort of entries, then it's very easy to merge them. And one other thing it will mean is that most of the voters are very likely to experience a rapid boost in their reputation, because now there's much more people agreeing with them, so the reputation will very likely boost all the way to the skies. Cool. So I think that's it when it comes to both the back end and the front end. And so what are the next steps for the project? So the first one is obviously that we'll get the mockups very, very soon. And the next step is we need somebody to volunteer to lead the project. So ideally this would be somebody who's full-time or at least 80% available. So yeah, please. There's also 2 people that joined on Friday from Latin America, from Mexico and from Honduras. So Hector and David. So either I'll have another call later in the evening for their time zone, or I would send them this recording. And that would mean that everybody would have the chance to think about this, and then we could see who volunteered. And yeah, we need one person to lead the development on the front end side. Cool. So that's everything for now. And let me know on Slack if you have any questions. Thanks for watching the video, or if you're not part of the community yet, head to our website, get in touch, and join the community. Thanks a lot for watching.